Yes, I'm capturing your video, Mike. God. We started the podcast, and it's always got to start with you complaining. This is the GamesBeat Decides podcast. We're talking about Mario this week. It's a special bonus episode. Mike couldn't talk about it. The Mario update is here. We are sneaking in your homes, and we're going to yell at you about Mario. So just brace yourself for that.
Yeah.
Mike, why don't you kind of just tell us what's what? Like, what have you been playing? How did it treat you? Is it the worst game ever? Best game ever?
It treated me like a kind and caring lover. Like, it left rose petals.
And that's the end of the episode, everybody. We'll be shutting it down right there. Okay. I read. I've been kind of reading your review in bits and pieces today when I've had time. Sounds like you liked it. Sounds like Super Mario Odyssey for the Nintendo Switch is pretty damn good.
Yeah, so I gave it a 100 out of 100. This is my first time giving out that score. Been reviewing games at GamesBeat since how long have we been there? When did we get to GamesBeat? 2014? 3 years maybe.
I stopped keeping track.
3 years now, maybe. It feels longer.
It's a little bit longer for me. Yeah, 4 or 5 years. You got to be like closer to 4. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Well, we both went the same time, but you started like full timing a lot earlier. Anyways,
That's right.
So yeah, I've been writing for GamesBeat for 4 or 5 years, and yeah, that must be right. So yeah, for a while, it's the first time I've given out that score. And I'm not like some weird outlier. The average score right now on sites like Metacritic, I think, is like a 97 based off of 60 something reviews. So a lot of people think this. I even went so far as to say I think this is I'm not gonna say I think it's my new favorite Mario game. And I like the Mario games a lot. To give you an idea, my favorite ones before this were the 2 Galaxy games and Mario 64.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's just so.
Well, let's start there.
It's so hard. It's like overwhelming to know where to even start with it.
Well, let's start there. Like, so you said like your favorite Mario games before this. Where does Odyssey fit in relation to those games? Like, what is it most closely related to?
I think what I like is that it is most closely related to those two in my mind, because you have this sort of open world design, kind of like, and by open world I don't mean like an Assassin's Creed thing. I mean like the levels are more open,
playgrounds,
mostly less
sandboxes.
It's kind of like sandbox playground design, where in a lot of levels will sometimes have like this one like a linear path somewhere in that playground for like to get like even just like a couple of the moves to kind of follow that path, but then just surrounding it is all these other paths or large areas with puzzles and whatnot. So it's very much like Mario 64 there. It's like Galaxy, and what was one of the things I loved about Galaxy was just this kind of like bizarrely almost epic and grand scale in the sense of awe that at the time you didn't really associate with the Mario games. Mario games were supposed to be kind of quaint and cute, and then it was like, wow, this is like kind of breathtaking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like completely here in this one. Just some of these levels, some of it's scale, but it's just like the way some things look sometimes. Like the first level you go to after like the introduction level is that kind of the dinosaur-y one. It's just like it has this like waterfall showpiece. At the top of the waterfall is this like dinosaur skeleton, and you're just looking around like, man, this thing is just incredible looking.
The HD-ness is still kind of something I'm getting used to with the idea of a 3D Mario platformer.
Right.
3D World did that, and I love that part of it. I thought it was an amazing looking game. But do you think this is a gigantic leap forward, or is it just like it's kind of the same thing, a little bit better, like in terms of the way it looks?
Forward. Because I mean, Mario's 3D World looks good, but and again, like one of the things I like about the Galaxy games is how they're always kind of very un-Mario in a lot of ways, at least aesthetically. Super Mario 3D World was very much the Mario aesthetic of the kind of blocky green things, the mushrooms everywhere, stuff like that. Whereas, and that's kind of the other thing, like there's all these different levels and they're just so creative, a lot of them. There are a couple that's like the snow level or like the water level. But
those are great too.
Yeah, but most of them are like, you see New Donk City. So, that's just amazing. And that place is huge. And then you have that dinosaur, like, waterfall place I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have these other locations, like this kind of food kingdom, which run by these talking utensils. You have this, like, kind of, like, this area that almost reminds me of Nier Automata. It's like this kind of, like, garden thing that's run by robots that are trying to build flowers and has kind of, like, a lot of these, like, almost like abandoned structures and stuff like that. Yeah, the levels are just really creative and neat.
So, in terms of the creativity, like visually, very varied. There's a lot of stuff going on. I definitely got the sense of that so far. Well, I guess first, are there surprises that someone like even me doesn't know about yet?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like what?
Okay.
It was like, oh my gosh, there's some really cool. I mean, there's some cool callbacks to the other games. There's some big surprises. One of them that happens immediately after you beat the game. And then there's just some other. That's the other thing too. Is like when you quote unquote beat the game, it's not just about going back and getting all the stars for like kind of fun. Like you're unlocking a lot more things. Some levels even. Some of them are kind of like some of them are kind of like the equivalent of like tubular, and
Right,
in some of
right,
them,
right,
and yeah, where it's like at least the one is like the super hard level, and it took me a while to get through that, and it was super fun to do it. So and even just like collecting moves will unlock some of the costumes in the shop, and it's even the amiibo ones, right? So like like that Princess Peach costume, the wedding one, like you
right.
can unlock that to buy in the shop when you get a bunch of moves. It's expensive, but you can do it. So that's another neat thing about like
Good.
you don't have to buy those amiibo to be kind of a completionist, which is I think
That's a relief.
surprisingly sincere, like a surprisingly kind gesture, I guess.
So then, in terms of actually the gameplay and what you're doing, is it just as varied? Is there every couple of minutes you're
Right.
doing something different?
Yes, and the capture mechanic is what just really kind of keeps that stuff
Hmm.
constantly interesting. So that's where you can throw your hand on something and take control of it.
Right. As long
And
as it's not wearing a hat. Like if something's wearing
yeah,
a hat, you
typically.
can't take it over, but everything
Well,
else.
there are at the like towards the end, some of the enemies will like kind of start wearing hats to get you, and you can hit them twice, and the hat will fall off the first time.
Huh. Okay.
You can get them, but yeah, typically if something's wearing a hat, you can't grab it. But I mean, what's neat is like every level or just a battery level will introduce at least one or two new things that you can kind of capture. That like sometimes there's things you capture, like you capture a rock to move it a little bit, and it's kind of funny. It's a short little thing, or like you capture a sort of a pole and you kind of fling off it. But when you capture an enemy, it like gives you access to like a kind of a whole different move set.
Hmm.
Like capturing that bullet bill lets you sort of float around. You can capture the Hammer Brother person if you like, and maybe try to get into some place where you needed to throw fire at something if they're throwing fire instead of hammers sometimes. You're in an ice level and the Goombas don't slip like you do, so you can be them. Or you're in the water world, and
Hmm.
if you capture a fish, you don't have to worry about breathing anymore. Or there's some of them are like just kind of really different. Like just this, I forget what it's called, but he basically can stretch himself upward, and when you let go, you kind of hop a bit, and you capture him, and like large areas of that level are built around that mechanic. So you're kind of being that thing for a while. So yeah, so it's kind of just like how Mario Galaxy had a lot of levels of like here's this one thing and you're kind of
Right.
gonna do it. It's like this is their way of kind of doing that sort of thing a bit more organically.
Right. Okay. So it's not just like a whole level built around this one idea. They just pop up here and there.
They pop up here and there, and they'll sometimes show up, and sometimes like so there's a lot of areas in the level two, besides from like the sandboxy element, where you'll like go to a door or a pipe, and you're kind of in a mini room. It's almost kind of like that thing from Mario Sunshine, where it's like just this one specific challenge. And sometimes it is like Sunshine in that it's specifically a platforming thing, but sometimes there'll be like something to capture there. You have to solve a puzzle or do one of these things or something like that. So there's all these kind of like self-contained smaller
Hmm.
experiences too within the much larger world, and that's really what makes it varied too, is just how big the game is. Like size is one thing, but just how many of these moons there are. I remember when you told me you heard someone say that there were almost 900 of these things, kind of like the Korok seeds,
Right.
and I just didn't believe you. I'm still not sure exactly how many there are, but I think it's at least 800. It's crazy.
Jesus,
It's
that's
insane.
nuts.
I have about 500 some, and I've been like going at it. I've been going at it pretty good.
Hmm. That's
Like I
okay.
think,
So and it's not like they're just like sprinkled all over the place. Like each one, like sometimes they are pretty easy to get, but like they
yeah,
go
some of them are
deep. Like
easier. Yeah, most of them like have their own little self-contained puzzle or what have you. Like a lot of them are like the equivalent of getting a star in a Mario 64 level. Some of them are a bit more like, hey, this one, like sometimes you can buy them from a store or
right,
things like that. But yeah, most of them are, hey, here's this thing here. The thing it's neat too because like it's built around the kind of way the system works is you kind of go through a level and there is sort of like this suggested path. You can kind of a lot of moons just following that. And that's kind of like your first thing. Then you can kind of just run around a bit and you'll probably run into a few. And at that point, that's probably good enough, like your playthrough, right, to get
Mm-hmm.
to the end of the game. Then, like, you go back to the levels, and after you beat the game, it actually unlocks a lot more moons in each level. That's when you're like in full-on scavenger mode, and you're like really searching around. And if you need help, there's even like there's a parrot bird, and he'll kind of give you a hint. And a lot, it's like the hint is almost like the one at the beginning of Mario 64, right, where it's like the star on top of Bomb Hill. So it's like, okay, that's a little bit something. Or you can even use coins to another character. He'll kind of point on a map exactly where a moon probably is and stuff like that. You can even use the amiibo, and he'll send them out, and it'll show you on your map where where some moons are. Which again is nice. It's not like a complete like, oh, you better have amiibo thing, because you can still use coins to do that same thing. So it's like it's nice because it's never frustrating, because you're always running around, you're always collecting moons. Even when you start kind of like narrowing the list in a specific level, you start taking advantage of some of those helper things that get those last few ones. And I mean, there's like a single level can have like 80 or 90 moons. A lot of them may be closer to 50, but there's a ton in a single world.
So it's not like at the end of like Zelda where I'm like really struggling to find the last couple of shrines. This is the game's gonna make sure I get there and have a good time doing it.
Yeah. It's not yeah, exactly. It's not like the Korok. There doesn't have to be an update to show you like where you got Korok seeds and stuff like that.
So okay, a couple things that I've heard about the motion controls, where some people are saying there are a few things that you can't do without having motion, which I would imagine would be pretty difficult if you're like playing on a train in portable mode. Did you experience this? Oh,
Nah, it didn't really bother me much. Just like the big thing is, uh, like the only time where the motion controls are super necessary is you can shake the controller a lot, and it makes you go faster, or it'll access a special move with some of the capture characters.
mm-hmm.
But shaking is something you can do with whatever controller you're using, right? You can even do that if it's just on handheld mode. And that's kind of like that's the only one I can think of where it was necessary to use that specific one. The only other maneuver that I was using the motion controls like a decent amount for was the kind of spinny hat trick.
Right.
You could do that even with the Pro Controller. You just kind of flick it, and it does that.
Right. You
But you
like
could
spin
also just
the left stick in a circle and right.
well, there is actually you can actually spin yourself and then throw the button to do it. But you can, even if you're holding a Pro Controller, just flicking that still does the same
Flicking
thing.
the actual controller. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
the Pro Controller does all of the, and that's what I
Right.
think like is kind of getting lost is, and they're very adamant like use the Joy Cons. The Pro Controller does all the same
Right.
commands for the that stuff. So I would totally suggest using the Pro Controller. But yeah, in handheld mode, I guess like you could still do that stuff. It's a little bit more cumbersome, but it's not. It really never once bothered me. Like I said, shaking you can do whenever, and shaking is the one that you will probably have to do. But yeah, that's completely not an issue.
It seems like one of those things where before the game is out, we're all getting anxious. Like we're like really worried about any small, tiny little thing that could be even like wrong in the most minute sense. And then once we get it and we're actually playing it, we never think about it again. I think
Yeah,
that
no.
happens all the time with these big games, and this seems to be like maybe one of those cases. Um, I, so you've kind of already talked about how like beefy each level is with all the stuff in it. But like the overall experience, I mean, is it longer than the standard Mario game?
I mean, it's hard to tell because for one thing, the Switch is weird about tracking your hours. Like it still won't tell me how much I played the game. It just says like you started 7 days ago. But no, I think it was the right length. Just going through it, kind of getting to the quote unquote end. It seemed pretty good. I imagined it was about, gosh, again, I feel it had to be like what 8 to 10 hours, maybe a little bit more. I don't know, and that's right,
Right.
right. That feels right.
Yeah,
And then
totally.
after that, though, just so much more to go back to and do. And the game really is built around you keep playing after you beat it.
Can you describe that a little bit more? You've touched on it a little bit, like because I just came off Wolfenstein 2, and it does this. I think it might do something similar where you beat the last boss in that game, and then they're like, okay, hey, there's still shit in this world to do, and everyone acknowledges it, and
Yeah, it's not like Zelda. Like that was kind of a complaint with Breath of the
right,
Wild, right? Where it doesn't really acknowledge that you're kind of in a post-game environment.
yeah,
It
you're
just kind
not.
of
Like I
takes
think you
you
have just to go.
back.
You have to just go back to a previous save, like
Right.
before you the final boss. So
No,
yeah,
this one is full on acknowledging, all right, we did that thing, but hey, there's still some more things to do. And also, here's this new place you can even go to. And there's maybe some more new places and a
right.
bunch more moons. No, it's full on like there's probably like at least 3 times as much to do after you beat the game. Assuming like you didn't get all the moves you possibly could have before you beat it, which I'm assuming most people won't. Yeah, it's not like one of those things where it's you don't have to like get all the moons and then go back and beat the final boss again. It's full on like this is the after game now, which is really nice.
I really like that. I liked it in Wolfenstein. I appreciate that they're doing it in something like Mario, which is not something I would normally think Nintendo would do. Maybe on that topic, and maybe this can kind of start wrapping us up. It does feel like Nintendo continues to find ways to surprise us with what it's capable of when it makes games. Did anything stand out here in terms like when you were playing and you said, "Huh, I didn't expect Nintendo to be able to polish this game in this particular way."
I think the one thing that surprised me a lot was how the game ran almost exactly as well in handheld mode as it did on the TV. I'm sure the
That's
resolution
awesome.
was smaller or something, and if you do a digital foundry thing, people can find out. But
Yeah,
the
but I mean
first time,
the Switch's portable screen is already a lower resolution than most
yeah,
TVs, so that's fine.
but
Yeah.
like it's like the first time I did that, I was like, well, I wonder what this is gonna look like. It's gonna be it was it wasn't that long ago that Super Mario 3D Land was some novelty because it was 3D Mario on a portable system, and it made
Right.
a lot of visual compromises to do that. And now it's just here's the newest Mario game. It's the best looking Mario game ever. It's incredible, and yeah, just play it in bed wherever. It was just really cool.
But Mike, is it a core Mario though?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, there can't be any debate about whether this is a core Mario game or not. I guess that's just what surprised me was just that another thing. It's just I just have like how so a lot of people are asking already like, do you like this better than Breath of the Wild? And I think I do. Part of that is with Breath of the Wild, I do have some quibbles, right? And quibbles are quibbles; they're not like
Right.
big deals. But I have quibbles like dropped frames. I thought the ending was kind of a little lame. I don't know if I have any quibbles with this game.
Yeah, I
Like
noticed in
honestly,
your review you were like, "What you won't like? Nothing." I
I
don't.
can't think of anything.
Have we ever done that before? I don't think we have. That
I
was
don't
pretty
know.
nuts.
I just was playing. I was just it's all good. Like I'm never bored or upset or like mad or yeah. It's just always fun. It's just always entertaining. It's one of the most entertaining things ever. Like not just video games. Just I think there's just being entertaining. It's just so great.
Where does Mario go from here then? Like, I mean, if this is like, it feels like
That's
maybe the
right.
pinnacle. Can they just keep
Yeah.
doing more of this?
Well, I think that's kind of the smart thing with the Galaxy games and then this is that they come up with one really good idea that they can kind of build things around, even more so than just like going back to the open levels. The
Right.
capture thing helps with a lot. Like Mario Galaxy had the gravity thing, right? Um, so they had to figure out that idea. I think if they wanted to, they could definitely squeeze a kind of Mario Odyssey 2 thing here, like they did with Galaxy 2, where it's the same kind of thing, just more of it. And I think I'd be completely fine with that. But barring that, yeah, it is kind of crazy. I guess the only other thing I could think of is completely open, where you don't even have like a level select, right?
Right.
Where you're going around all the place.
Hmm. Yeah, like, I mean,
But
maybe
who
they could
knows?
do that as like the DLC for this game, where like they just have like a medium-sized city, like somewhere between this level and like a full open world game, that they sort of do something with as an add-on. That could work. I guess this just occurred to me. Then maybe we can actually get out of here. How is capture different from Kirby swallowing enemies? Like, is there a substantial difference, or is Mario just chomping on Kirby's flavor, and he should like watch his
No,
back?
because Kirby's still
Should he watch his
Kirby.
back? Because Kirby don't fuck around, Mike.
Because Kirby and Mega Man just get one new move. Mario completely turns into those things. It's very different. Like his like physics change, like the way your moves
Hmm.
changes, your moves change. Yeah, you're like completely becoming those things.
Okay, yeah, that is different.
Yeah,
And then what happens
yeah.
if Kirby swallows you while you're capturing something? It's a whole mess,
They
and
go
you
to
can read my
hell.
fan fiction to find out more about it. Um, all right, Mike. I
There's just so
think
many
that
things, Jeff. But there's just so many things. Like
yeah.
just
Go ahead,
the
please.
movement. The movement is even like I was worried that they would make it more simpler. There's even more like crazy
Oh,
like
good.
moves that they don't even talk about than usual. Like there's like a wall, and they're like supposed to go all the way around it, but you're able to do this like there's this maneuver I kept doing. You could like side jump under the wall to get really high on it, jump off the wall. Then when you're like facing away from the wall, you throw your cap. That gives you a little extra boost. Then you turn around, you do that dive jump thing,
Oh, the
and it's
dive
like
jump thing you yelled at me about doing during
oh,
E3.
the dive jump is awesome.
I
It's so
yeah.
useful.
I was
So,
I was getting worried when I started hearing the motion controls because I was playing the game at Target after you got the review code, and I was weeping in front of the kiosk because I didn't have my own copy, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out like, and they had the Pro controller, so I'm like, okay, how do I do this without doing the motion controls? And I'm saying, oh man, that'd be a real bummer if like you have to flick or something because that's something I'm going to do a lot, and I want to be precise as a button press. So I got worried, and then I put it on Twitter. I'm like, hey, is this the deal? It's just like, just tell me now. And no, like, I think Dan Riker was like, no, it's good. I didn't even know you could do that with the motion controls. I used it all the time. I'm like, okay, awesome. That's a relief.
no, I'm using that move constantly.
Yes.
It's
So,
so nice.
yeah, it just feels like it's going to be an awesome game to watch speedrunners do. It's going to be an awesome
It'll be
game to
fun
go
for
back
speedruns.
and like play like every couple of
The,
years.
the max moon category might just be an impossibility. So I say, but who knows? Somebody will do it.
Right. Yeah. Someone will figure something out. But yeah, I'm excited. It comes out. It's out like in Japan. It's out in Europe right now.
Yeah,
I'm almost like thinking about going to the eShop store and like changing my region just so I can buy it. But I don't know. I'm gonna wait and see. We'll see. I'm still supposed to get a second code, and I might just say screw it and just buy it instead of waiting until tomorrow for them to send it.
Heck with tomorrow, man.
Yeah. There's no way if it's not in here by 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. my time. Yeah, I'm just gonna buy it. All right. Well, I'm jealous, Mike, but it's a couple more hours. So yeah, you go ahead and you. How much? Wait, how many starter moons do you have left? Do you have any idea?
Like I said, I have about 530 so still at least 200, probably more. Like I'm kind of going through each of the kingdoms and maxing them, and I'm about a little less than halfway through that process right now.
And I mean, is it still like your number one thing that you're doing most of the time when you have some game time, or is it?
Well, I'm playing a little Destiny 2 because that's new and my
Right.
friends are playing it. But yeah, it's Destiny 2 and Mario right now.
Okay, cool. All right, I think it's going to do it. Thank you, everybody. This was the special Super Mario Odyssey bonus episode. We'll be back with a normal episode next week. We will probably talk more Mario once I've gotten some time with it and Mike's gotten closer to capping out all the moons. So yeah, so thank you for joining us. Until then, have a good one. We'll see you then.
I